That's on live stream. That's what I'm doing. Howdy, kids. We're back at it. Back at it. Yeah, no. Okay. Hope everybody is having a good one. So, we're editing some more. The release date of Dark Horse is next Thursday. So, it is right around the corner. I have to have the final finishing touches ready by Sunday. That's when I have to have my files uploaded to Amazon. So I'm going to try to have them ready by Saturday. Because I got to. It's not going to work otherwise. Sunday's a no-go. So I have to get it done by then. Hopefully we will. The position that we're in here now, we have some more descriptive edits. These are the characters that I have to go through and check that their descriptions are present. I have a couple more chapters that have some heavy notes on them, and I saved these for last. And then there's a chapter here that needs to get written, I think. And will get written tomorrow. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I am not the kind of author who is afraid to go back and make little touches here and there. Not George Lucas style changes. Not that sort of thing. But if there's a couple little things that can improve it, then I will. Okay. And one of these days we're going to do some vertical live streaming too. Don't know if I'm entertaining enough for that. That's my only concern. Right. In that respect. But okay. The next character that we have to look at is Priya. These are her descriptive notes. Olive tone skin, amber colored eyes. Amber, did we settle on amber? She is shorter. Black hair. That's what we're going with. Let's find amber. Priya eye color. Yes. Oh, green. They're green. Oh, there you go. See, I said they were green. Brilliant shade of green. So this is... And of course, I'm in a different revision mode right now, which I will switch. Why does it do that? I've got to click on it and then click off of it. And okay. So what we're doing here is this is the whole book, 47,000 words. And we are looking for that character, Priya. Oh, come on. Oh. Helps if you spell it right. Yep. I think this is where we go about describing her. Somewhere in here, probably, is where we go about describing her, isn't it? Next. Sent by your half brother. Okay. Yep. And we can see which chapter we're into. So if it's like the first reference in a new chapter, I'm going to skip ahead because I'm pretty sure she gets. Oh, no, 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 no. There we go. Decide stayed locked on Priya. Slightly his mother. There we go. Let's find another one. Well, wait. This is in the chapter. Actually, we can just look in this chapter. We talk about hair here. Dark hair was tight and curly. Oh yeah, that's a different character. um, okay, I think we do a pretty good job of describing her. Blue dress. Same blue cloth as her dress. Embroidered with metallic gold thread. And then we are... Yowzer. Okay. That's a long ass paragraph. Yep. Okay. She's good there then. Let's see. Find hair. Hair on his neck. Okay, that's the other one. Eyes. Let's see what we got. Eyes change color, turning bright blue again. Priya looked up at Mailer, her eyes still bright sapphire. Those robot eyes of hers. Okay, his eyes glowed blue like Priya's. But a natural light from behind them. Brief glass of his eyes. Her eyes turned red. Okay. Snugly. Snugly. Snug. Let me just say snug. Okay, I think we're good here. Do we have Priya in here? Nope. She's not in that chapter. She's in this chapter, though. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we added a fair bit there. Eben Sati. Okay. Oh my gosh. Then I got to think about chapter order and if I want to do anything with that. Do I want to mess around with the chapter order? That's the question. I don't know. Oh, man. Okay. Okay. Glass, eh? Whoops. Nope, don't capitalize that. Excuse me. Both of them. It was hard to let go. Yeah, I don't know. Just got that. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Oh, she's not in that chat. Okay. Blair. Oops. Yeah, we got Sati too. Darl. Okay, Darl it is. Yeah. Dude's a hologram, so how much I don't know. Let's see. Shook his I don't know that I want to be like beating the reader over the head with the fact that he's a hologram. I don't know how helpful that is. Or how the holographic is this the same? No, it's the same. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's not overdo it. Oh dear. Actually, I like that. Oops. Yeah. That's good. Okay. These guys are only in one chapter. Oops. Yeah, that's fun. That is fun. Okay. There's a lot of edit notes on this one. Oh, jeez. This chapter is 4,500 words. Whew. I almost wonder if it'd just be easier just to do text to speech through this and then catch it as I go. Okay.
She wasn't what Kaz had expected, but she recognized her once she saw her. The maidservant, Maranatha, was a few years younger than Kaz, by the look of her, and yet her beauty hadn't faded, either. Here Kaz was, expecting to find a chewed-up scab of a woman, someone manipulative and able to get into the head of a young man and gain control. But that wasn't Maranatha. She clearly didn't have to resort to any manipulation, none at all. Maranatha sat there obediently on the chair she'd been ordered to sit in since early that morning, right outside the kitchen where the other servants would pass her by. The trepidation on Maranatha's face was Maranatha was there on the chair she'd been ordered to sit in since early that morning, right outside the kitchen where the other servants would pass her by. The trepidation on Maranatha's face was plainly visible for Kaz to see from her vantage point at the head of the dining table, and the only plain thing about her, Tarek knew how to choose them, and for that matter so did her son. "You haven't touched your breakfast, Your Majesty," one of the servants said, having approached while Kaz was distracted. "Are you displeased with it?" Kaz looked down at her plate. "No, nothing wrong with it. I simply don't have an appetite at this moment." Kaz looked down at her plate, piled with a generous portion of meat and eggs. "No, nothing wrong with it. I simply don't have an appetite at this moment." The servant nodded and started to leave before Kaz grabbed him by the tail of his jacket. "The woman over there, the maidservant, have her come sit beside me, Your Majesty. You heard me. Go get her." The servant paused, but obliged nonetheless. It took him some time to cross the full length of the empty dining hall, and the maidservant was clearly on edge as he approached. She probably had no idea what this was all about. Kaz realized. Gar had chosen to take a more subtle approach rather than confronting her head on. "It may be advisable to attempt to befriend her," he had said the night before. "If someone does have leverage on her, she may be looking for a way out." "Piss off," had been her response. "Make friends with the whore who's fucking my son." Gar had ignored the outburst, as he often did. A Saren saying comes to mind that may be of some illumination here. Pawns are meant to be pushed, and so, here she was, treating the situation like it were just a conversation, like she was just trying to get to know one of her underlings, so far beneath her that she had never warranted a thought up until this moment of her life. Outwardly, at least. "Your Majesty." Maranatha bowed deeply before Kaz, but kept her distance. She was curvy, black curls on her head. "You asked for me." Kaz looked down at her plate again. Her appetite had returned suddenly, but perhaps it was just so her hands had something to do to relieve the nervous tension. She grabbed a piece of bacon, biting it in half. Sit. Maranatha obeyed.
That's why we do this.
But perhaps it was just so her hands had something to do to relieve the nervous tension. She grabbed a piece of bacon, biting it in half. Sit. Maranatha obeyed. Kaz let her sit there silently for a short while as she consumed her breakfast. She ate until she couldn't any longer, then slid the plate over to Maranatha. Please, Kaz said, gesturing. Help yourself. Maranatha was wise enough not to refuse, taking a modest piece of meat for herself, covering her mouth as she chewed. It is delicious, Your Majesty. Thank you, MHM. It is, as I said, help yourself. Off knows you've been helping yourself to my son whenever you want. Those words were a sudden bolt of lightning on a clear blue day. Kaz studied her face and found it familiar. She'd seen it before all the times she'd drawn a knife on an unsuspecting victim, and judging from the frantic dance of her eyes, her words were just as sharp as any assassin's blade. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. Kaz shrugged. Don't be. No, really. I'm glad my son has been able to plow you at his leisure. I'm not as prude as you might think. Maranatha. I'm not Messav. Remember? I don't have all the hang-ups about this shit that you and your people do. Maranatha pressed her back up against the hard back of her chair. It will not continue. I promise you.
Whoa.
Maranatha straightened up against the hard back of her chair. It will not continue. I promise you. Kaz furrowed her brow, leaning over the table with both elbows in a very unladylike pose. I never suggested such a thing. In fact, I should commend you. None of your fellow maidservants took it upon themselves to relieve Prince Kadiner of his needs in the a very unladylike pose, the neck of her dress opening up as she did. I never suggested such a thing. In fact,
Do we describe it at any point?
dress opening up as she did. I never suggested such a thing. In fact, I should commend you. None of your fellow maidservants took it upon themselves to relieve Prince Kadiner of his needs in the way you have. If anything, you've solved a problem for me that I've worried about since he was a boy. Young men need somewhere to put their energies. You know, better he put it in you than anyone else. At least, until he is Wednesday. She looked down her nose at Maranatha. Though you could make a suitable concubine, if you can still bear children. She watched her squirm. Kaz had managed to put some of the pieces together from the other day, when she'd come to visit
Wait a
Kadiner
minute.
in his...
Okay.
She watched her squirm. Kaz had managed to put some of the pieces together from the other day, when she'd come to visit Kadiner in his quarters. The explosion had preoccupied her thoughts immediately after, but upon recalling the day's events, one thing in particular stood out to her. You're trying to bear his seed, aren't you? Kaz let it hang there.
This is the problem. That wouldn't make any sense. We can deal with that. I can deal with that.
You aren't trying to bear his seed, are you? Cos let it hang there in the air between them. The prince, Kadener, he said he wanted me to bear his firstborn. Anne, did you oblige him? Maranatha nodded, the tight curls atop her head bouncing as she did. I would normally take a contraceptive, but he forbid me. Cos gripped her utensils, knife and fork. She spun the knife in her hand, twirling it around and over her fingers, catching it again with the point stuck in the wood of the table. The violence of the movement caused Maranatha to flinch, but Cos evaded her gaze. That's when she remembered Gar's suggestion. Up until that point, she had simply been indulging her own petty need to show who was superior. Now it was time to build a bridge. I care for my son, more than anything, Cos said, gently laying her utensils back down on the table. I wasn't always an empress, but I've become a pretty fucking good one if I do say so myself. She looked up at Maranatha, doing her best to smile genuinely, not too sweet so as to give away the trap, but not so subtle as to convey apathy. What do you think? Your honest opinion of me. I'm curious to know. Maranatha forced a smile as awkward as Cos had made. I have no complaints, Your Majesty. I have been treated very well in your service, and the people adore you. Cos raised an eyebrow, leaning closer. I call bullshit. She laughed. I know I'm not perfect. What would you do differently, if you were me? And she would never be empress. Cos would see to that. Maranatha shrugged. I don't know really. I don't pay attention to the politics, all the arguing and infighting. Thought she never would. Cos would make sure she would never become her son's empress. Maranatha shrugged. I don't know really. I don't pay attention to the politics, all the arguing and infighting. I think your rule has been fair and just. What the fuck? Gar must have been mistaken. There was no hint of discontent in her voice, not even a little. Cos had to change angles. You and my son are close, so I have heard. Cos folded her hands on the table in front of her. I wouldn't want to break you two up. He seems to have a soft spot for you. It was the first thing Cos had said that seemed to put Maranatha at ease. Thank you, Your Majesty. You can remain one of my son's concubines. I'm afraid it wouldn't be proper to make you a wife. Having been married before, that would be out of order. What with all the Messav traditions? The maidservant's cheeks were flushed. She sniffled, reaching up quickly to wipe a tear from her eye. I would not complain if that were to be my fate, Your Majesty. Cos looked at her with new eyes. She had spent the whole morning in terror, dreading what was going to happen to her. The tears weren't an act. As far as she had been concerned, Cos had held her life in her hands, examined it, and handed it back to her unabused. She'd been in the clutches of a predator only to be released. That wouldn't.
Okay. This is need a better word. Unharmed. Unharmed, maybe.
She'd been in the clutches of a predator only to be released. That wouldn't be the reaction of someone who was being used as a pawn. What had Gar told her? This morning, my advisor. What did he say to you? The slender one? With the purple cloak. Yes, Gar is his name. What did he tell you? Maranatha took a breath. He told me that my secret has been found out, that I was going to face consequences. That I needed to wait here until I was called on to be questioned. Kaz leaned closer. What secret did he mean? Tell me. The maidservant looked confused. The secret? My knowledge of your son, Prince Katiner, your majesty, nothing else. She shook her head. No, nothing else. Kaz looked down at her hands for a moment, then stood to her feet abruptly. Resume your duties tomorrow, girl. You've been through enough for one day. Kaz left her there, making a beeline out of the dining room and into the greater halls of the monolith. Where is Gar? She shouted, hoping anyone would answer her. Where is he? It was unlike him to stay hidden for long, but perhaps he knew his mistake and was making himself conveniently absent.
Let me... Yeah. This is not the ideal word. But, well, it doesn't, it's fine.
Kaz left her there, making a beeline out of the dining room and into the greater halls of the monolith. Where is Gar? She shouted, hoping anyone would answer her. Where is he? It was unlike him to stay hidden for long, but perhaps he knew his mistake and was making himself conveniently absent. She heard boots ahead of them, coming her way through the halls of the monolith. A trio of guards approached her, seeming breathless. Your Majesty, there are intruders in the palace. You need to come with us. Your Majesty, it isn't safe here. Kaz felt a tingle on the back of her neck. She looked up and down the hall. I see no intruders here. One of the guards stepped around the other two, trying to form a semicircle around her. Every synapse in her brain screamed at her that very instant, but she had to give them what they wanted. For a second, she had to take back from them the element of surprise. Your Majesty. Kaz glanced back at the entrance to the dining hall, finding Maranatha standing there. It was the opportunity she needed. Kaz pulled a hidden blade from the bodice of her gown, cutting open the nearest guard's throat in one fluid motion.
That's fine. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Every synapse in her brain screamed at her that very instant, but she had to give them what. Every synapse screamed at her that very instant, but she had to give them what they wanted. For a second, she had to take back from them the element of surprise. One of the guards placed a hand on her shoulder, fingers grasping onto the fabric of her dress. Your Majesty. Kaz glanced back at the entrance to the dining hall, finding Maranatha standing there. It was the opportunity she needed. Kaz pulled a hidden blade from the bodice of her gown, cutting open the nearest guard's throat in one fluid motion. He gasped, or tried to, and Kaz pushed him into one of the others to buy herself a moment. The second reached for the blade, grabbing her wrist, but with a subtle twist of her shoulder and elbow, she slipped through, slicing along the inside of his forearm where his armor was thin, tracing a winding red line up into his armpit before taking the knife on a nosedive into his ribs between the purple plates of armor. Just like riding a fucking bicycle, the last one had managed to make space, drawing his weapon. Stop, put it down. What? You need me alive, she taunted him, having a long enough moment to toss her knife from one hand to the other and back again. What if I was ready to die today? The guard hesitated on the trigger pull, then trained his sight in Maranatha. Shots fired, striking the walls, but he must have thought Kaz was just any other noblewoman, soft and delicate, helpless and benign. She was anything but that. She'd closed the distance even as the shots fired, pushing the rifle up into his face. A struggle ensued, and overpowering him was not an option. She'd overcommitted. In a moment the knife was struck from her hand and she was thrown into the nearest wall, pinned by all his weight plus his armor. Kaz spat in his face, hitting his right eye. Ha, bullseye. She laughed. What? Not very ladylike, am I? Is that why you're mad? He wasn't falling for it, staying stoic in the face of her taunting. He adjusted his hold on her, securing her with one arm so he could reach his wireless on his chest. I have her, but she's not making it easy. There was some muffled sound coming through the other side of the channel, but nothing that could be made out. Her attacker seemed confused, like the plan was falling apart and he was left hanging. Kaz tested his grip on her, but it was solid, and without a weapon she wouldn't be able to equalize the situation. Who are you waiting for? Huh? The servants have all heard this commotion, and no doubt there will be men with guns here in just a moment ready to take you out. So why not make the smart move? Let me go. Get down in your knees, and beg for mercy. In that moment, while he was still waiting to hear a response from his wireless, he actually looked like he was considering her suggestion. But the moment was chased away when a clear response came through. Affirmative. Avoid the south hall. Bring out the north gate. Kaz looked back over at the entrance to the dining hall, fearing she would find her son's lover dead or bleeding out, but she was fine. In fact, if anything, she was trying to determine a way she could help. Hiding behind the cover of the doorway with just her eyes peeking out, Ka shook her head ever so slightly, signaling her to stay back. There was nothing that could go right in that situation. It's time, Your Majesty, her captor said with disdain. He reached into his belt, retrieving a pair of bindings. She resisted as best she could until he struck her in the head. Dazed and in pain, there was no way to fight back. He spun her around and bound her wrists, grabbing her by the collar and dragging her down the hall, toward the northern side of the monolith. So this was it. After all these years, she should have died a long time ago back on Vey anyway. She'd gotten lucky, too many times to count. How many Vey bosses ever got to retire as an empress of their own empire? Surely she'd be remembered for that. The woman who may as well have had a set of balls of her own and told the whole universe to fuck off. This was it. But then it wasn't. Before they reached the northern entrance, Kaz was dropped to the floor, still disoriented. She couldn't make out why at first, but there was a scuffle, one-on-one. It was short, ending in a snap, crackle, and a pop, which Kaz could only assume was her former captor's neck getting a timely adjustment. The body falling to the floor confirmed it. The other man was a shadow, barely perceptible through her eyes in that moment. Her face was swollen from the blow she'd sustained, and her head hurt enough that she was seeing double, maybe triple. But when the bindings came off and he helped her sit up, she knew for absolute certain it was him, Tathis.
Okay, much better. Much better. That feels a lot better. What was this note? Oh yeah. Armor. Was I consistent about this? Oops. Fine. Okay. Really? This is the first time they show up. Okay. So if I were going to do a different chapter order, what would I do? The introduction is 6 chapters long. It's 18,000 words. It feels a little off. It's like if we did This is why I have this. Then it would be that followed by that. Those 3 chapters are the most like so I grouped everything together. Does that even make sense? Okay, so this is. Do I have to duplicate all of these? Do I have to? Is that what I have to do? Duplicate all of them and rearrange them? I think so. We're duplicating 47,000 words. Okay, I need a new folder. And then, okay. So we go one there. And we stack these up. Okay. let's just get them in order. And then wow, this is actually a big chunk. That's 17,000 words. This is 18,000 words. And this is 7,000, 9,000 if we add that chapter. But that's not, I don't know it's an odd way to do it in parts like that. But it might almost be better. I mean, what's the benefit of it? I mean, these chapters with Eben could almost be first on their own, right? Because it's not really revealing anything else about any of the other characters. We're not getting there yet, right? Maybe a little bit with Razik, right? This guy is around. That's kind of. That is kind of revealing. That part is kind of. Right. So that's what Razik. Okay, but it's not a big reveal. What if we do this? Do we have anything going on with the Saron? It's tricky. I can't really do that out of order, can I? It has to be that. Oh, that's okay. It's a long time to go without checking it. That's 35,000 words between those chapters. Can't do that. We could use it to break them up. He almost needs a fourth chapter. If we do that. $6,000 words, 9,000 words. I like that. That's because we end his thread. Because he goes bye-bye. Yeah. All right, now this chapter has to be written. Has to. Got to create that. I'll probably write that tomorrow or maybe Thursday. I got to think about what's missing from her character. Okay. I think this is okay. Gosh. Oh, gosh. Okay. And then there's this. Not even finished. 10,000 words that I wrote. 10,000 words. And it's fine. Again, I wonder if we go like by character. Kind of. So this is like what? What do?
Eben inhaled sharply as he entered the dream. He was lying on his back beneath the olive trees again. The councilwoman was there. He could sense her. You seem oddly cheerful today, she said, seated on a rock nearby. He gave you a new body, did he? Now that's rather impressive, especially for one who isn't Crimson. Eben sat up, planting his hands in the grass next to him. He did. For Safi and I both. It's unbelievable. The councilwoman scowled. Don't let it go to your head. You don't realize how much your youth impacts your thinking until you're old. You're cashing in unearned wisdom, Ebener. Pretty soon you'll think you're invincible again, just like you did when you were younger. Folly, that. It would have been better if he'd given you the body of a frail old man. Eben smirked. Nice to see you, too. The councilwoman hugged, planting her hands on her knees, her legs folded
Hugged.
beneath her as she sat atop that large rock. I already know why you're here, and the answer is no. I will not be leaving this place. The dream is my home now, and I won't be among the living anytime soon. I figured you'd say that, but I wasn't here to ask you, Eben said. He tugged at a blade of grass, ripping it out of the ground and rubbing it between thumb and forefinger. I know you wouldn't leave the dream for anything. I couldn't drag you out of here, even if that were possible. You could shut it all down, she replied. Put me out of my misery. Scrap the entire thing. Eben shook his head. That's not what I mean. I have no intentions of shutting down the dream, but there's an opportunity here, and I think it's worth considering. The councilwoman stared at him for a long moment, narrowing her gaze. Eventually, you are full of ideas, I'm sure, and I don't like what I see. Crigson can be restored, rebuilt, no, resurrected. We don't have to force anyone to leave the dream if they don't want to, but the opportunity to grant new bodies to our people, to give them a second chance. How can you overlook that? The councilwoman looked
Whoops.
down her nose at him, snide. Who said I was overlooking it? I said I didn't like the idea, but I am under no delusions about whether or not I can stop you. Eben's breath hung in his chest for a moment as he interpreted her words. So you'll let me bring them back? Let you? The councilwoman laughed. Ebener, as far as I am concerned, you are the only one who can make that decision. There's no stopping something like that. Once word gets out about it, it will spread like wildfire to the rest of the collective. If I tried to stop you, I would fail. Miserably, might I add. So, you don't have my permission, because you don't need it. Eben pushed himself up to his feet, looking out on the horizon. The rest of his people were out there, waiting to hear the good news. What about Tathis? Do you think he'll want to come? Or is he bound here? The councilwoman shook her head. The only way to know is to ask him. But restoring your Trigon would be a worthy cause, something that might convince him. But if you're going to do all of this, you have to promise me one thing. Eben turned back to her, smiling. What's that? Let them be human, she said. The slightest smile appeared on her thin, wrinkled lips. Forget the collective and the way it was before. If Crimson is going to be reborn, it should be truly born anew. Watching you and your journey has convinced me of that. As a collective, we had one purpose, and because of that, we lacked it. Each individual deserves the right to choose. Some may stay within the safety of the hive mind, while others will leap at the chance at autonomy. But they must all have to choose for themselves. Eben nodded. I can do that. Good. You better go. Then, you've got your work cut out for you.
There you go. When it works, it works. Okay. Interesting. Excuse me. Where are we? What are we doing? What am I doing? I'd like to know. Oh, my knees. Yeah. I got stuff to write. Lots of stuff to write. What's this? Okay, that's weird. That should go there. Yeah, this does need some attention, doesn't it? Oh.
The planet Kos was aptly named. The so-called Empress of the Mesav Empire was self-absorbed and concerned only with herself. The only exception to that was, perhaps, her son. It wasn't as if she'd named the planet herself. Neninger knew that. But such a ruler did not deserve the benefit of the doubt. There was no forgiving Kos for what she had done, for the blood on her hands. He could not allow her sins to go without punishment. To do so would be to let himself down. That 7-year-old boy who somehow managed to survive the exodus by the skin of his teeth. It hadn't meant much to him up until the last few years. He had made do up until his 25th birthday, and what he learned that day changed him for good. That's what had set him on his mission, his new goal in life. No longer content to just survive. He had a meaning for every breath. Kos must die. Tell me they aren't running late. Neninger stood in the corner of a dingy room, poorly lit, his back to the wall. It was his own study which he had prepared for his auspicious guests that evening, meeting under the cover of dark, in secrecy, and on the Empress's own planet, no less. Sid entered after hearing his question, dressed in a tight black bodysuit that showed off his feminine figure. His blonde hair was done up in waves, spilling over one side of his head. I've heard nothing from them. Neninger took a breath. They will come. They want the same thing we do. See to it that they are able to arrive discreetly. If there is anything drawing attention to the area, they may hesitate. These are all known enemies of the throne. Remember, Sid smirked at him. Of course I know, my lord. I will make sure of it. Neninger waited patiently, but he did not have to wait for long. His Mesav guests arrived not long after Sid had left the room. Hakon Garrus was a tower of a man, and built like a wall. His form was square-like, his shoulders as broad as he was tall. He entered the room, ducking out of necessity. Neninger suppressed a laugh at the appearance of his block-shaped head, which was almost too small for the rest of his frame. Welcome, Hakon, Neninger said, revealing himself. Judging from Hakon's surprise at discovering him there in the corner, he was still adjusting to the feeble light. I could do without the meeting in secret, Hakon boomed. He scraped his mousy beard with one of his paws. It didn't seem right to refer to them as hands, as massive as they were. He motioned to his men to follow him inside. That won't be necessary, Nenunger said, holding out a pale hand. There will be scarcely enough room for the others if your men were to file into this small room. My men go with me everywhere. Nenunger took one step out of the shadowed corner of the room, revealing himself in his formal Messav attire, a finely embroidered black robe, stitched with purple thread. Not here, Hakon nodded, giving his men the signal to wait outside. He spent a good long moment after that looking Nenunger up and down, seemingly perplexed. You do not appear to be Messav. Nenunger shrugged. Do any of us these days? Well, maybe you do, perhaps, but the home world with all her benefits are long gone, my friend. Hakon nodded, giving his men the signal to wait outside. He spent a good long moment after that looking Nenunger up and down, seemingly perplexed. You do not appear to be Messav. Nenunger shrugged. Do any of us these days? Well, maybe you do, perhaps, but the home world with all her benefits are long gone, my friend. We may have been adapted to that planet long ago, but we aren't there anymore. Hakon huffed. If one is content to waste away in such weak gravity, perhaps, our former glory can still be attained. Clearly, Nenunger conceded. It was self-evident that Hakon's bulk was maintained by more than just a routine of picking up heavy things and putting them down. Can I get you anything? Juice perhaps. Hakon politely refused, the joke going clear over his head. I may not look like you, Hakon, or like our people once did, but I assure you, I hold in my heart the same fire.
Let's see. Whoops. Everybody does it. Okay. That's a significant upgrade there. Where are we at, word count wise? Still 47,000. Are we going to tip the scale to 50,000? Is it going to go all the way to 50? Maybe. I don't know. That wouldn't be that hard, but I don't know that this chapter needs to be 25. A 100 words, really. I don't know. I don't know that it needs that. Okay. This is a most exciting stream. I'm very much aware of this. Oh, that's what that is. Okay. Okay. Outlining. I think we'll change the icon on this one. I think this one is good to go. It's good enough as a bonus. Just needs a... Okay. Let's do a quick line edit here.
The gifts granted to you by the Exarch and the Praetors cannot be rescinded. Alex regripped the handle of his blade. Then they should have thought about that before they chose a motherfucker like me. The stalker in front of him was patient, more patient than the others. Alex looked out of the corner of his for his rifle. Hand-to-hand combat would be perilous, but that gun could finish the job, and save him the trouble of getting roughed up in the process. Ryer should have killed you, the stalker said. It's clear now that he is as disobedient as you are, more subtle than you, perhaps, but it's all the same. The tree always bears its fruit, and by its fruit you know its kind. What are you doing, kid? Blackwood said in his ear. You catching up on old times, huh? Give this guy the axe and move on, otherwise they're going to gang up on you again. Alex started to circle the stalker in front of him, not letting him out of his sight. The Graken have taken everything from you, just like they did me. Don't tell me they haven't. Get out of my way and we don't have to do this. I didn't come here for you. The stalker sneered behind the mask of his carapace. Oh, I know. You came here for him. The stalker kicked up debris from the ground into Alex's face. Alex juked to the right, drawing out the attack. The stalker pounced, his claws extended. He swiped wide as Alex changed direction, pushing off with his boot on the cement to propel him out of the way of the attack. His left first connected with the stalker's neck. The chitin made a satisfying crunch beneath the hardened His left fist connected with the stalker's neck. The chitin made a satisfying crunch beneath the hardened steel plates of his glove, and equally so the audible crackle of his energy shield as it repelled the stalker's flesh. 2 more strikes was all it took. Finish him, kid, Blackwood said. You don't want him sneaking up behind you. The stalker was in a heat. Alex hadn't even needed to use his blade. Blackwood was right. He was a god. Among the chosen he was, at least. Alex rolled the stalker over onto his stomach with his boot, planting a knee on his hips. Think you can pick him up, Woody? I've got a feeling about this guy. Alex reached for one of the plates at his hip. A small compartment opening up as his glove touched triggered the magnetic locking mechanism. Damn it, kid, Blackwood answered. Yeah, we got room for one more. Just make sure you stick him good. Alex triggered the magnetic locking mechanism. Damn it, kid, Blackwood answered. Yeah, we got room for one more. Just make sure you stick him good. Alex took out a small metallic rod the length of a pencil. He remembered the way Dr. Reyes had showed him how to insert it. He recited the instructions aloud as he did it. Lift the chitin stab by the spine. Seal it shut. The stalker jerked when the rod went in, but then he was still. Alex grabbed hold of the carapace that covered his head, peeling it back in one smooth motion, revealing the human face underneath. He was a young man, like Alex, a few years younger, maybe, in his mid-20s by the look of him. His brown eyes stared up blankly at Alex, his pupils wide. We're gonna pull you out, Alex said. You're gonna get a second chance. What's your name? Ryan. Alex placed a hand on his chest. I'll be back for you, Ryan, once I deal with him. The comm in Alex's ear crackled. We don't have all day, kid. The Graken are starting to wise up. Get to that fucking ziggurat and find that bastard. You've got one shot at this. Alex straightened, scanning the landscape with his visor. There was a clear path on the other side of some stacked vehicles. He left Ryan where he was, retrieving his rifle before pushing forward. At the top of that stack of vehicles he could see the ziggurat, clear as day. It was a ball field's length away. It's dead, kid, Blackwood said. We scanned the area. No one's come out or gone in. Alex jumped down to the ground on the other side, landing on both feet. He scanned the ziggurat. His HUD told the rest of the story that Blackwood couldn't. The rest of the chosen were huddled inside, but they weren't in the upper chamber or on the balconies. They were in the belly of the ziggurat, which meant they'd been summoned there by him. I'm going in. Copy that, Blackwood replied. Come out alive, kid. Promise me that. No promises. Alex took off in a sprint. It felt effortless to navigate the terrain between him and the ziggurat. He could leap over vehicles in a single bound and amble over anything he couldn't jump over. The stairs of the ziggurat were before him, opening into the belly of the structure. He saw it all with new eyes. As one of the chosen, the structure had instilled silence and obedience in him, but how he saw it for what it was. The first step took him a moment still, pushing through that mental barrier he had in his head. Do not forget. Do not deceive. He descended. The walls on either side of him widened as he went farther down. The stairs reached a landing and split off to either side. continuing the way down in a zigzag pattern, ending in the large open hall of the ziggurat. It was empty, his footsteps echoing all the way down, with no railing on either side of the stairs to prevent him from falling. The floors and the walls were of the same material as the chitin, appearing to be alive, with smooth edges and sharp protrusions both in places unexpected. The living architecture of the ziggurat seemed aware of his presence, too, but was unable to do anything to him there. Its only power over the chosen was fear, and Alex was not afraid. A green light emanated from a large alcove carved into the opposite wall at the bottom of the stairs. A column of green light came up through the belly of the ziggurat there, an open hole in the floor. He had to step through, denying his own instincts. He'd seen the Graken do it before, but never done it himself. One foot and then the other. It was like falling for the briefest moment, and then that pillar of light supported him, like he was suspended in water, sinking slowly into the depths of the ziggurat's belly. It was a long way down to the bottom. The cavernous belly of rhetorical ziggurat would have been completely dark to him before, with no light to speak of. His HUD revealed all. The room was broad in all directions, having the appearance of a natural cave. The chosen were huddled on the outside of the room, at least 200 by the estimate his HUD provided him. Blackwood's voice came. It was a long way down to the bottom. The cavernous belly of the ziggurat would have been completely dark to him before, with no light to speak of. His HUD revealed all. The room was broad in all directions, having the appearance of a natural cave. The chosen were huddled on the outside of the room, at least 200 by the estimate his HUD provided him. Blackwood's voice came through choppy. "We're you, kid," and then it cut out completely. At last, silence. The pillar of light ended in the middle of the cavern floor, setting him down gently on his feet. The chosen didn't swarm him or even move. They stayed at the outskirts of watching him, as they'd been told to do. Alex surmised. Zegra. Alex shouted. The praetor's name. He'd learned it once, when Ryer used it. Alex looked down at his feet. The floor of the cavern was covered in chitin as well, the ceilings dripping with a thick, runny ectoplasm. A rumble echoed through the cavern. A door opened at the far end of the room behind him. Alex spun on his heels. From a distance the praetor. Zegra. Alex shouted. The praetor's name. He'd learned it once, when Ryer used it. Alex looked down at his feet. The floor of the cavern was covered in chitin as well, the ceilings dripping with a thick, runny ectoplasm. A rumble echoed through the cavern. A door opened at the far end of the room behind him. Alex spun on his heels. From a distance the praetor looked small, a temporary illusion. His single green eye was trained on Alex like a spotlight, his narrowed figure revealed by his own bioluminescence, emanating from within his black flesh. Horns and spines jutted out from his head, joints, and back. Arrived. You have prodigal son. Alex raised his rifle, firing a slew of shots. The praetor shut his eye and endured it, bellowing with laughter after it passed. The chosen laughed along with him, cackling like goblins. Futile, feeble one, insult me not with your pebbles. The praetor let out a deep roar, shaking the ground beneath Alex's feet. He charged. Shit. Alex widened his stance, aiming at the praetor's eye. Rakata, rakata, rakata. The praetor shut his eye as he closed in on Alex, his step slowing. Alex tucked and rolled, escaped being crushed, if only for a moment. He had the praetor's back, a weak spot. Trigger pull, side step, duck, trigger pull. Praetor Zegra swiped at him again, missing. The green fire within him began burning hotter. Losing your temper, Zegra gnashed his teeth, baring them for Alex to see. Enough, petulant worm. Alex took off sprinting, straight at the demon before him. The praetor raised his arms to grab hold of him. Alex dropped his weight, sliding under the praetor's legs, releasing a stream of bullets from his eye down to his pelvis. Before he could find his feet, Alex was struck from behind, sending from his eye down to his pelvis. Before he could find his feet, Alex was struck from behind, sending him sliding across the chitin-infested surface of the cavern. The cackles and hisses of the chosen taunted him. They crowded closer, hovering over him to get their licks in before the praetor made another advance. Submit. Alex slung a grenade from his belt, palming a second one in preparation for whatever came next. The praetor stepped over the grenade as it went off. Submit, the Praetor bellowed, his voice rumbling through the open cavern. Alex slung a grenade from his belt, palming a second one in preparation for whatever came next. The Praetor stepped over the grenade as it went off, but it proved only a momentary distraction. He continued pressing forward, enraged and invulnerable to every shot Alex fired. Alex tried to escape. That demon's hand reached out and snatched him, grabbing hold of his back plate. He lifted Alex up into the air, holding him over his gaping maw, and, now you shall meet it. Alex flicked pin of the grenade in his hand off with his thumb. Throwing it was no good. He punched the Praetor in the back of the throat, or tried to. The demon's jaws clamped down hard. He punched the Praetor in the back of the throat, or tried to. The demon's jaws clamped down hard on his forearm. Even with the energy shield, the steel plate, and the inner suit, Alex could feel every razor-like tooth. He released the grenade, dropping it down the Praetor's gullet. Praetor Zegra was unprepared for what happened next. The explosion sent Alex flying, landing him on the floor amidst a scattering of the Praetor's flesh. Chunks were falling out of the air, barraging him from above as they landed on him. He looked down at his arm. The shield took the brunt of it, a red glow surrounding his hand and forearm. A few plates were missing, but he was whole, all 5 fingers still intact. The Praetor did not share the same fate. Alex scrambled to his feet, prepared for another attack, but the Praetor was split in two. His legs and torso were attached by only a thin strip of flesh, his body resting face up on the ground as black and green goo oozed from out of him. The flesh inside was soft, tender even, having the appearance of tainted meat, dripping black like charred steak. You just cut that part off, Pop said, reaching across the dinner table with his You just cut that part off, Pop said, reaching across the dinner table with his fork and knife. He took the burnt edge of the steak for himself. More for me that way. Alex strode across the floor of the cavern, bussing his time. Groans and hisses still came from the Praetor's mouth, but his light was fading. The chosen on the edges of the room sat in stunned silence, unsure what to do now that their master was maimed before their very eyes. A fallen god, whose worshippers relied on his every word, now abandoned. Chosen. You are gifts received. What the hell are you on about? Alex stood at the Praetor's head, looking down at him. He removed his long blade from his back, its needle-thin point reflecting the faintest of light off its keen edge. The eye. It was the most direct way. Alex gripped the handle of the blade with both hands, dropping to his knees as he plunged it into the Praetor's eye. It went all the way in, straight to the back. Green ooze splattered onto Alex's visor. The Praetor lay there, lifeless. Screams and hisses came from the eye. It was the most direct way. Alex gripped the handle of the blade with both hands, dropping to his knees as he plunged it into the Praetor's eye. It went all the way in, straight to the back. Green ooze splattered onto Alex's visor. The Praetor lay there, lifeless. Screams and hisses came from the chosen surrounding him. Alex drew his rifle, preparing himself to be surrounded, but they wanted nothing to do with him. They scattered like roaches, clattering their way out of the cavern through whatever narrow exit they could find. Alex retrieved his long blade and walked back to the green pillar of light in the center of the cavern, taking it all the way to the top of the ziggurat. It was empty inside, every demon and skulking minion scared off and hiding. He stood there on the balcony of the ziggurat, overlooking the ruins of the city below. Can I get an extraction over here? Chopper Delta, do you copy? Extraction requested. I'm at the ziggurat, son of a bitch. Blackwood said, you fucking did it? Tell me you did it. The motherfucker is dead. He didn't go easy, but he's dead. Alex's HUD highlighted the position of the chopper as it cut an aggressive angle to his position. The buzz of the twin rotary blades grew louder. Alex stood at the edge of the balcony as the chopper hovered.
Okay, we're there.
Son of a bitch, Blackwood said. You fucking did it? Tell me you did it. The motherfucker is dead. He didn't go easy, but he's dead. Alex's HUD highlighted the position of the chopper as it cut an aggressive angle to his position. The buzz of the twin rotary blades grew louder. Alex stood at the edge of the balcony as the chopper hovered there overhead, lowering down slowly until he was able to grab onto the handrail and pull himself inside. Blackwood shut the hatch behind him. "Get us the hell out of here," he shouted to the pilot. Alex sat down on the bench seat, removing his helmet as the chopper sped off. He looked up at Blackwood, finding him with his glasses removed. For the first time he saw him eye to eye, a pair of cold gray eyes staring back. "You did it, kid. You know what this means." Alex nodded. He looked back to the aft portion of the chopper. Ryan was there on the floor, wrapped in straps across his body and unconscious. "You picked him up." "Yeah, after the shot you went through. I wasn't gonna not do you that favor," Blackwood said. "Hopefully we can help him the way we helped you." "His name's Ryan." Blackwood nodded. "Ryan, welcome to the team," the pilot shouted to them from the cockpit. "LZ is bugged. We're gonna need to find another spot to touch down." Blackwood walked over, hanging on to whatever he could to keep from falling. "Over there," he said, pointing out the front window. "Push it to the max. We'll make it." Black. Everything black again. The same way it had been when he was with Sophia. Alex saw nothing, felt nothing, just black.
Okay. And I think that's a place to call it. Got a little bit done. That was good. Ugh. Alrighty. Toodaloo.